Hello again. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since we met, or I've done this. It's been about a little over a week. Sorry if it's you've been waiting for it. I've been very busy, and from time to time, that will probably happen. Like I said before, I would like to try and do a video two a week. Is my goal, but again, it's not always going to happen. This will be Genesis chapter 7, and like I say, always make sure you take some time before you watch this and listen to read the Bible on your own. So pause it and even take some time and pray and ask God to help you learn and get some insight on this as we go through it together. Yeah, so I would say go ahead and do that now, and then we'll get started. Assuming that you've paused and read it, and if you haven't, that's between you. I mean, that's up to you, but I really think that's something you should do. So here we go. Again, I'm just going to break down section by section as we go through Genesis chapter 7. If you remember last week, or the last time I spoke with you, and maybe if you didn't listen, maybe you don't know, but last week we talked about Genesis 6, obviously. Genesis 6, God calls Noah, tells Noah what to do, and to save him from a worldwide global flood that is coming. And yes, it was a worldwide global flood, and we'll talk more about that in the next few video sessions. Okay, so Genesis chapter 7. Then the Lord God said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your household, for I have seen that you are a righteous man before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of clean animals, male and its mate, a pair of animals that are not clean, male and its mate, 7 pairs of birds of the heavens, also male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and every living creature that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground." Noah did all the Lord had commanded him. So many people have talked about this before, and you probably learned this if you ever went to Sunday school. They said that Noah brought 2 of every animal with him, and that's true in a sense, but not exactly accurate. The truth is he brought 7 pairs of clean animals, and we'll get into the clean and unclean animals when we get into Leviticus and things like that. But certain animals were considered clean and some were considered unclean. And it doesn't mean clean and unclean doesn't mean like they were dirty or hadn't bathed, but it means that they were what the Bible would call ceremonial unclean. Ceremonial unclean. And usually those animals had certain reasons, like pigs were unclean, and probably had a lot to do with the fact that pigs are not good for us. They're high in cholesterol. They do taste good. Obviously, pulled pork is really good. I enjoy it very much, if you can imagine. And but they were ceremonially unclean, so they were not to eat those things. So, but there were animals that were clean, like sheep and other things. I don't remember all of them for sure, but when we get into Leviticus, we'll go into more detail on those. But so Noah was told to bring 7 of every clean animal, male and its mate. So it was basically 14 of every clean animal. So 14 types of sheep, 14 types of cows, I believe, were clean. Other things like that. Rabbits, I believe, were clean. And then male and its 2 of every unclean animal, male and its mate. So it wasn't just 2 of every animal. They did come in pairs, but there was actually more of each animal. And the reason for that is in the first generation, when God first created the world in Genesis 1, the first generation would have mate with their siblings, or their like Cain and Abel would have married their sisters. Now, I know some people may find that gross or weird, but if you think about genetically, Adam married his rib. So you can't get any closer than that. So, and the other thing is you don't have any choice, right? So when the first 2 dogs, male and female, had a male dog and a female dog, in the same litter, they would ultimately mate, and then eventually you get to the point where they don't do that anymore. And now in this generation, when the flood happens and they come out of the ark, they will not be mating with their siblings, they'll be mating with cousins. This is why there's more of each. And this is the same reason why Noah not only went into the ark, but he also brought his 3 sons and their wives, so that the next generation will marry cousins. They won't marry siblings, because now they're getting too close because of genetics and things like that. And so he tells them to bring in all those, and also to bring in 7 pairs of birds of the heavens. So it'd be 7 robins, 7. But understand that the other thing about this is it's like kinds of dogs. So it wasn't like, let's say that dogs were considered clean, and I'm not positive they were or not. I don't remember. But let's just say dogs. It wasn't 14 types of German Shepherds. It wasn't 14 Cocker Spaniels. It wasn't 14. It was 14 dogs. Now, a lot of people will say, well, how did they fit all those animals in the ark? Well, one of the things they would do is you wouldn't bring the biggest dog you could find. You would bring puppies or kittens or calves. You bring the babies with you because, number one, they take up less room. Number 2, they eat less. Number 3, they sleep more. And number 4, they're going to live longer after you get off the ark, and the whole point is for them to repopulate the earth. So you want the babies. You don't bring the biggest, like I said, I think it was the last video, I said that even dinosaurs were on the ark, but you don't bring the biggest brontosaurus you can find. You bring a baby brontosaurus because he's smaller. And they found dinosaur eggs that are only, like, I think the largest dinosaur egg was ever found was like this big. So the dinosaurs were small when they were born, and dinosaurs, like any reptile, is significant because what they do is they grow and grow and grow and grow and grow their entire lives until they, or I mean, if they're in like an aquarium or something, they grow to their surroundings. But if they're out in the wild, they grow and grow and grow completely. And I don't mean like this way. Like we humans, we stop growing around 18 to 21 or so this way, but if we still continue to grow this way, at least I do, or I have, and others, but dinosaurs and all reptiles continue to grow and grow and grow in length their entire life, and we still see that today. And so, but you wouldn't take the biggest brontosaurus or the biggest T-Rex or the biggest velociraptor. You bring the babies because they take up less room, for one example. And again, they live longer. Now you may ask, where did the dinosaurs go since then? We will talk about that at another time. Okay, so make sure that we get through this, because I've already spoken for 8 minutes on this part, on the first 4 verses. So he tells Noah that in 7 days he is going to bring water. He's going to rain on earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Now a lot of people say it's a storm. Okay, there's no record as far as I know of it being a storm. It's just rain. It just kept raining. Okay, not that that's really that significant, but so in verse number 6, Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters came upon the earth, and Noah and his sons and his wife and their sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and of animals that are not clean. So again, he's repeating about this. This is where he's going into the ark. And of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground. Two and two, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah, and after 7 days the waters of the flood came upon the earth. So like I said, they came in twos, but there was 14 of the clean ones. And the other thing is, you don't have birds in there. I mean, sorry, not birds. You do have birds in there. You don't have fish in there, because fish survive. And I don't believe there was insects, because insects survive through their spiracles, and they can survive under, I don't remember that. There's a thing on it, but I'd have to look it up. So sorry, I don't remember that exactly. But I don't believe insects were in there. But even if they were, actually insects would probably be on the ark, because they would survive in the ark. But fish obviously wouldn't need to be in there. In the 600th year, this is verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, and on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven were open. What this is talking about is underneath the earth there was a crevice of water. They were like water chambers, and the waters broke through. So some of the water from the flood happened from the firmament, like we read in chapter 1 of Genesis. There was an expansion of water in between the water layers, which a lot of people say there's actually a fifth layer atmosphere that's now missing. Okay, I'm not a scientist. I've only done studies on what I've read and what I've seen. They claim that there was actually a fifth layer of atmosphere that is not there anymore. And this atmosphere would have protected the people from the sun and the radiation of the sun, which is why people probably live to be 900 and some years old, where today we're lucky or blessed to live 80 years. So some of the water came down from that, but then a lot of the water actually came up from crevices under the ground. And if you see all over the world, there's these fault lines all over the world. Well, that's where the water came up. They bursted through the fault lines, and it was under pressure. Okay, so God released the pressure, and they burst out. So a lot of the water that would probably go up and through the ocean levels, and then rain down, and it looks like it's rain when it's actually water from beneath. But there was rain from above and water from below. Where did I leave off? Verse 12. And the rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. On the very day Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the three wives of the sons with them entered the ark. They had every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kind, and every creepy thing on earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. Notice how it says every beast, every winged creature, a winged creature. So it would have had to have pterodactyls. It would have had to have dinosaurs. It didn't. They weren't extinct. Okay, at least not at that point. There might be some extinct now. I'm not positive they were all extinct, but we can go into that later. It's probably bringing up questions, maybe, if you've never heard this idea before. But basically, again, he says all of its kind. It's not saying species, right? Species is like, there's the dog kind, but then there's species of German Shepherds, Labradoodles, Labradors, things like that. Those are species. So it's not 14 of every species of dog, it's 14 dogs. So much smaller number than what a lot of people will say it is. Okay, in verse 15, they went into the ark with Noah, two of all flesh, with which was the breath of life. Okay, so it's talking about things that breathe oxygen. So obviously fish, again, don't enter. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut them in. So the Lord shut them in and sealed tight the thing. And the same day that this happened, the rain fell. So it's like Noah finished the boat just in time. Or God was patiently waiting for him, and as he finished it, when Noah had finally finished it, God poured the rain on and sealed him in. Verse 17, the flood continued 40 days on earth, and the waters increased and bore up on the ark, and it rose above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. The waters prevailed so mightily that the earth and that all the high mountains under the whole heavens were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits feet deep. Remember, cubits again is your middle finger to your elbow. Sorry, it's hard to point it out with my holding the Bible. But it was 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all of mankind. Everything on dry land in whose nostril was the breath of life died. It blotted out every living creature that was on the face of the ground, men and animals, creeping things of the birds of the heavens, and they blotted out from the earth only. Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. So basically what it's saying is that the waters took 150 days after the rain had stopped for the waters to recede. So it may have rained for 40 days and 40 nights, But Noah was actually in the ark and his family for 190 days because it took 150 days for the waters to recede so that the boat could land on something. That's how high the water was. Now, one thing I wanted to point out too, I forgot what I was looking at here. I was going to talk about the fossil record. If you know anything about the fossil record, like they show all these layers of fossils, and at the bottom it's always worms, and then as you go up it's animals, and then there's humans, and then there's birds, right? And people say that's based on how many years, and people who believe in old earth or believe in evolution and stuff, they will teach that this is how we've evolved. But if you look at the story of Noah, it actually makes sense, because how would the fossil record, when the flood starts, what's the first things that are going to die? The insects and the worms and things like that that are on the ground. They're at the bottom. The next thing are the smaller animals. Well, why are they? Because they're smaller animals. They can't get their head above the water level. So they're going to die next. Then what's next? Your bigger animals, like your bears and giraffes and things like that. Well, why is that? Well, their heads are taller, so they're able to survive above the water longer, and they're able to swim as the water goes up until they get tired and eventually drown, so then they start to sink. And then what's at the very top? Well, humans, and humans are the smartest creature on earth, if you want to use the word creature, and they will climb to the highest mountain that they can get to, or swim as much as they can to the highest point until the point is where the water gets above that, and eventually they drown too. So of course they're going to be on the top. But then of course the birds are going to be above them. Why is that? Well, the birds can fly. Even when the trees disappear and the mountains disappear, they can fly for a while above the waters, and eventually they get tired, land in the water, and drowned. So the fossil record makes perfect sense and aligns with the flood perfectly. And I actually think some of this happened. Some people say, well, why didn't God just tell Noah, why didn't God just destroy all people and then have Noah just start over? Well, the reality is the flood leaves evidence. It leaves lots of evidence. There's tons of evidence throughout the world, and you can look it up. There's some great guys who go into great detail on this, like Dr. Kent Ham and Dr. Kent Hovind. You can look them up on YouTube, as well as other sources, and they go into great detail about how the evidence that we have on Earth proves that the Earth there was a global worldwide flood, and in fact the Earth is less than, around 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and not millions and billions, which is what mainstream will tell you, that was millions and billions of years, when the reality is, and you may never have heard this before, this may be a new concept for you, you might be hearing 6,000 to 10,000 years, and you might think I'm crazy, which I don't blame you. When I first heard it, I thought it was kind of crazy too. But if you look at the scientific evidence, if you look at the Bible, the way it's written based on genealogies, based on the historical things, it is roughly 1,600 years from Genesis 1 to Genesis 6 is about 1,600 years. And then it was about 4,400 years from where Noah gets out of the ark to present day. And Jesus was here about 2,000 years ago on earth. And that's the timeline of the earth. So the reality is the earth, biblically, and there's a lot of scientific evidence. There's another a great website on YouTube called Is Genesis History? And a lot of people on there, I watch it, I don't know anything personally, I don't remember their names, but they go into great detail about how to prove the earth is actually young, like 6,000 to 10,000 years old. So this is the end of Genesis chapter 7. I hope you liked it. I will have hopefully Genesis 8 and 9 out shortly after this. Again, I'm trying to do two videos a week, and hope you enjoyed it. A friend of mine suggested that if you learned something new from the video, to give it a like, just so I have an idea that you learned something. I'm not going to ask you necessarily to subscribe. That's up to you if you choose to do that. But I do appreciate you watching and enjoying. Hopefully, you're enjoying and learning from this. And I really hope and pray that this is strengthening. The reality is, I would love this to strengthen your trust in the Word of God. That this is the Word of God. This is God's inspired Word that He gave to humanity. And I want to encourage you and strengthen that. And I hope it does strengthen your belief in God and His story. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.